Welcome to the Rescue One podcast. Each week, we talk about challenging the way we do business in the fire service when it comes to mental and physical health. I believe there's a better way to do it, and I want to bring in experts that can teach us exactly how and why we should be doing things differently for the sake of our longevity on and off the job. If we can just rescue one of our brother or sister firefighters from preventable injury, illness, or disability, then we've done our job. Thanks for listening. Welcome back, everybody, to the Rescue One podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Today, we have Morgan and Max from Extract Consultants, and I wanted to bring them on because a lot of you guys try our products, and you know we have the out-of-service sleep formula, the lemon flavor, and the mint flavor. Well, how we get those terpene profiles and that flavor comes from these guys. I found them a little over a year ago, and I've been slowly experimenting and working with them and building up more and more of our product line with their products, because I absolutely love what they do. I don't want to give away exactly how they do things, and I want them to come on and talk a little bit about terpenes, how they help our products, why they taste so damn good, and what kind of their history is. So thank you guys so much for coming on.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So I'll let you guys get started. Can you tell me a little bit about who you guys are, what your history is, kind of what your story is, how you got started? I know you guys have a long history. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, we do. So my company, Extract Consultants, was founded in 2014. I come from a family business in the essential oil, flavor, and fragrance space. They've been around since 1908. So I'm fifth generation of family in that industry.
Wow.
Always kind of thought I'd go into that business, and spent a lot of time working there as a kid, and just kind of in my blood. So I've always been passionate about cannabis. I was living in Denver when things kind of first started opening up and cannabis legalized in Denver, and then I had an opportunity to go work for a grower processor in Seattle. So I kind of got my first foot in the door, moved to Seattle, Washington, and really started learning about growing and processing, working for them. And kind of in the middle of all that, people started talking about terpenes. And, we were always kind of thinking about finding a way into the space in a more serious manner. And it really just kind of happened naturally. One of the cool things about the essential oil industry as a kid growing up in it is the fact that no one knew anything about it. No one knows why things smell good, or why they taste good, or what goes into a toothpaste or a gum or a candy or anything like that. People don't think about it.
Yeah.
And that was always kind of a cool facet of it. And then all of a sudden, the cannabis industry started talking about terpenes in a big way. It was a kind of a hashtag word, and that kind of gave us some direction. These small little labs started to play with these materials that I kind of grew up working with as a kid in the lab, compounding, building flavors and fragrances. And so we went to a trade show back in 2014, and it all kind of clicked. Honestly, we started out just kind of exploratory. We put 10 isolated terpenes on a website and started taking phone calls. And that's pretty much it. That's how things started. 10 materials, taking phone calls, figuring out what people wanted to build, how to build them, what kind of products they were putting them into. And that's really when it started. And in 2015, went off on my own. The Extract Consultants is founded between me, my dad, and three of his best friends growing up from college. Cool. So we're a small little family business. We're still a pretty small team. And, again, we come from a long line of people in the essential oil space. And my family's business, we're from the Midwest. When things first started, there was a lot of risk involved into stepping into the cannabis space. So we sort of started an offshoot, separated an entity, and our company was really designed to support cannabis with, things we already do in essential oils, flavors, and fragrances. So, terpenes themselves are pretty much an aromatic molecule that all plants produce terpenes. The fascinating thing about cannabis is the range of terpenes that is produced. It's a very complex plant. I'll talk a little bit about the science and kind of why people want our materials initially, but people put cannabis through extraction processes to get concentrated materials to use in various products. During that process, all those pretty materials that make cannabis taste and smell good get burnt off in that process. Most of the time, you're left with a pretty flat, unflavored product. And it all kind of starts with the idea of wanting to put that smell and aroma back into the concentrate. So you can do that in a number of ways. You can flavor and make anything smell like anything, but the general idea of our products is to recreate a terpene profile using other botanical materials found in other plants that are similar. You can, cannabis produces things like limonene and myrcene and caryophyllene, and you can find limonene in lemon oil, and you can find myrcene in hops, and you can find caryophyllene in pepper and all kinds of different things. So the actual range of terpenes that cannabis produces is really, really wide. It's very complicated. So it starts with kind of a baseline profile that we get from a particular customer that analyzes his crop, brings it back to us. We build kind of a conceptual profile and sort of deliver it back to the customer for analysis. And it's rarely ever going to smell exactly like it started. It's pretty much impossible, mostly because there's materials that are even unknown that we haven't quite detected yet in the analytics, and it's limited still. So in terms of being able to like replicate a perfect profile, it's near impossible to do without using actual cannabis terpenes or terpenes extracted from cannabis directly. Anyways, I know I got a little bit off topic in terms of where we come from, but that's kind of the shell of the story. Family business. 2015 was when we incorporated, and again, it really just started out taking phone calls, hearing what people wanted to do, and at the core, that's still how we operate. We want to get to know the customer, build a relationship. Our whole goal is to help customers build their brand. If we can help you guys sell your brand using our flavors to do that, that's really the goal.
Yeah. I mean, I noticed that immediately. Like, you guys have a very, very nice website. It's built out perfect. You guys have one of the most helpful things is the tool that tells you how to, add back, all of the flavor to get the proper amount, so you don't like overpower it or get not enough or whatever. I love that. And then, just the fact that you guys have these broken down by effect. I think that's super helpful too. That's how I started doing my research on a lot of terpenes that help with, what we use is we call it out of service, but I blended a couple of your sleep terpenes, and the flavor, people think I added, like artificial flavor in there. It tastes so good. So just to touch on what you said, if we wanted to make something taste like a mango, what is the process? If I come to you and I say, I want to make my CBD mango flavored, how do you guys do that?
Sure. So it's a little complicated, and we have flavor chemists that are on staff.
We love complicated, so you're good.
Yeah. And again, you think about fruit flavors, traditional flavors. All these are kind of candy-like flavors, right? And they're sort of, I don't want to say standard, but like for example, if you take like a cherry, you can't make cherry without using a chemical component called benzaldehyde. You can't make grape without using a chemical component called methylene. These are not terpenes.
Synthetic.
What's that?
Those are synthetic.
No, they're not. You can find them naturally derived. Okay. I mean, we work with synthetic materials as well. The biggest difference is hard to replicate when you go to distill and isolate these materials from a natural standpoint. It's rare you're ever going to get them 100% pure. That's kind of the value add to synthetic products, is you can get them pure. But again, our foundation is natural. Our parent company's foundation is natural. We're very focused on natural materials. And yeah, so some of these components, everything we make for the most part, unless a client specifies, is an all natural product. To go a little bit further on kind of that flavor aspect, right? Our industry is sort of hashtag terpenes, right? Groups everything into terpenes, but it's a lot more complicated than just terpenes, right? There's a lot of different types of chemicals that go into a flavor, from esters to monoterpenes, sesquiterpenes, flavonoids, solvents. There's a lot that goes into the process, and sort of one of the things that cannabis demanded initially was something called a solvent-free product. So, for example, in traditional flavors, most flavors are built with ethanol or PG or MCT oil or propylene glycol for PG. Cannabis has spent a lot of time during their process removing things like ethanol or butane, hexane, anything they're using from a solvent standpoint, trying to get out of their product. They don't want to put anything back into it that might have that term solvent. So solvent free has been a big thing for us from a creative standpoint, building products that don't have these types of binding agents. There's challenges to that. At the end of the day, solvents are used in flavor development for a reason. The biggest reason is because some chemicals aren't soluble with one another. They don't like each other. And in order to make them like each other, you need kind of an intermediary, which is where the solvent comes in. So again, if you were to say, I just want a mango flavor, but I don't want any PG or MCT in it, then we have to kind of get creative. And there's a lot of IP that kind of goes into that
Yeah.
process.
Yeah. So that stuff's state secrets.
A little bit. Yeah.
Which is awesome because there's a lot of flavors out there. And just the CBD industry in general, and I'm sure the cannabis industry, which I'm not as privy to, but I do appreciate the difficulties sometimes is, you're gonna get just a bunch of crap thrown in these bottles because nobody's regulating us. What I wanted to make, because when I got started and wondering what kind of CBD I could take as a firefighter to not worry about failing a drug test, was quality. And so I wanted to go above and beyond, which is kind of how I got started. But that means that if I were to stay true on that, I would have to go above and beyond on every single ingredient I make and every single product I make, where we source our glass bottles from, where, what lab we choose to test everything. And, that's how you guys popped up, was because I appreciated the side where you guys, I'm a fanatic about lab testing. I lab test everything 3 times before it goes out the door. And one of the first things I noticed about you guys is that you have a COA. And in general, I don't know of any other flavoring brands, essential oil brands, or anything where the COA is so prominently right up front, like in your face. It's like, it's a point of pride for you guys where you're like, hey, check this out. We are extremely transparent because we know we make good stuff. And that's exactly how we are. So immediately I was like, these guys get it. They're exactly like I am. And the stuff just tastes amazing. With all of that, when we went to send our product out with your terpenes in it, when we were testing them, I mean, it came back perfect. And with just a small amount of concentrated terpenes in our product, like the terpene profile on our lab test came back super high. It was very, very cool to see. And, you guys make a product that is naturally derived, that tastes good. And, terpenes have effects. There's a reason we use like the sleep stuff that you guys make in our out of service formula. A lot of people are going to listen to this and they don't know what terpenes are. So they're just kind of getting their feet wet in this, and they're understanding what a terpene is. What effects do we know that certain terpenes have? Like you mentioned myrcene, which is one of my favorites. And I know that one's really high in some of the sleep blends that you guys make for a reason. So like kind of, I don't know if you want to touch on that and talk about how some of that stuff works.
Yeah. So a lot of that kind of circles back to sort of like, the aromatherapy world, which is in a bit of an objective space in a lot of ways, but our subjective space, my bad. But it's so like if you take myrcene, for example, right? Myrcene is found in hops primarily. That's like one of the biggest producers of myrcene, and anyone who's drank a beer knows that beer can make you tired. It's pretty clear. And myrcene has a big part to play in that. Things like from a sleep profile, for example, you can target things like valerian root, for example, chamomile. Any type of tea you drink at night probably has chamomile in it. So using our kind of knowledge in the aromatherapy world, we've been able to kind of take concepts from that and build profiles using terpenes in conjunction with other essential oils that we know contribute to being relaxed and being calm. There was a cool study that I looked at a few years back. It had to do with transportation of fish into, because in Asia they put fish in fish tanks in restaurants and all the time, and they ship fish internationally, and a lot of them die during the process. And there was a study where they just infused the water with a very small amount of caryophyllene into the water, and it kind of calmed the fish down, and their survival rate went up pretty big. So there's been studies out there like that kind of just show efficacy. But at the end of the day, again, a lot of it goes back to the traditional aromatherapy approach, what we use for targeting energy or sleep or staying active. We kind of pull from our knowledge of that world.
Yeah, and I mean, I've also read a lot of research on myrcene specifically. Like when we take the stuff, a lot of people get kind of weirded out when they hear, essential oil stuff because they think, if I rub lavender on my hands, I'm not going to have a heart attack or something. It's going to stop me from having a heart attack. And like that's not what we're saying at all. I like to look at research, and there is research behind pharmacokinetics from these things. When you take them, they move in your body in a certain way, and they affect certain receptors in a certain way.
Yeah.
And so, myrcene does have an effect on almost sedation from what I was reading. Like it can make you feel tired, which is cool. And so does like chamomile. It has apigenin in it. Apigenin makes you feel calm. This isn't like pseudoscience. It's actually published medical research, which I think is amazing. So, if you take this stuff and you concentrate it down, and we're putting it in our CBD and it tastes good, we're kind of getting all of this together. So, the second part of that would just be making sure it's quality, which, we touch on. You guys do that really well. And, I would say like a pretty big part of the industry is trying to make this stuff taste good. Like we have an unflavored bottle, and it's just MCT and CBD isolate, we put CBG in there as well. And doesn't taste like anything, it just tastes like water. And, we went to you guys because a few customers were like, hey, this would be a lot easier to tolerate. If I have to put this under my tongue or between my cheek for 2 minutes, can I get some flavor in there? It's
might
weird.
as well enjoy it. Yeah.
Exactly. So we started looking around, and we've been playing with a bunch of flavors. So when you guys kind of make these blends, what had to go into looking at that and saying like, we're going to use these for sleep or energy or anything? I know you said like some of it comes off the knowledge what you've had by then, but I'd love to hear kind of like some of the R&D stuff, like without giving away all the state secrets.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, I'll speak to like the quality aspect a little bit. So our parent company works with over 2,000 aromatic materials. We source them all over the globe, and we have a pretty extensive internal QC process to evaluate every material that comes into our facility, and qualify it based on a spectrum of things that we look out for, whether it be just the actual range of like terpenes within an essential oil we'd expect to see, pesticides, heavy metals, all those types of negatives that you want to test for and look out for.
Let me ask you, sorry, but I was just thinking, so when you said you source a bunch of aromatics, so what do you use to, like you said, myrcene is in hops. Do you guys source hops so you can like quality hops, and that's one of the things that you take to extract from?
So our company doesn't do a lot of extraction in-house. There's other companies out there that kind of take the raw essential oil and break it down into its individual parts. And
Gotcha.
there's big houses out there that kind of have a lot of the supply of these individual components. So a lot of it is just a sourcing thing for us.
Yeah.
We do some extraction in-house. Most of it involves primarily mint products, where we kind of take a raw mint product and clean it up essentially, and build it to kind of a certain spec. The reason why like your guys' toothpaste tastes the same every time is because the initial mint oil you're gonna get from harvest is gonna vary from every harvest. I mean, nature is so hard to control. But then you can take that raw material, bring it back to a distillation lab, and kind of cut it up, take off fractions of heavier parts, and reduce it to a more like purified form effectively. So we do some of that work internally, but for the most part, it's really a matter of making relationships with quality vendors and sourcing direct. So again, a lot of those materials we bring in are already processed, and for us, it's just about kind of QCing them, making sure they look good to our standards, and they're going to enable us to build that same product the same every time. That's the goal. Our biggest goal is to provide quality and consistency to a product, and it takes a lot of steps to get there. I mean, in an average flavor, there's 20, 30, 40 different ingredients in a particular flavor. So they can be as simple as, I mean, some flavors can be as simple as, 3 or 4 ingredients. Some can be as complicated as 80. It really just depends on the blend and kind of the customer and what they want. But there's a lot that goes into flavor and fragrance development. There's a lot of moving parts. From a supply chain standpoint, you could be looking at one flavor and each of its parts come from 15 different vendors. It's a complicated process. I don't know if that answered your question, but
Yeah. So you guys have to build out, like, if you're thinking, okay, we want to make a sleep blend, you want to get a certain range, and you decide the percentages that is going to be linalool or myrcene or whatever else, and you think to yourself, okay, we need X amount. I have to source, all of this stuff from. You're saying you sometimes you have to source from, dozens of vendors to get all the stuff you need to make this blend. And then the lab testing side of it. So it's pretty wild. I was hoping to create like a little bit of an appreciation for, like our people when they take the product. Sometimes like they see the end result, they don't know all the stuff that goes into it as far as work and research. And they like to know, we get a lot of feedback from people asking about our lab testing and where we grow stuff from and all this. So it's cool to give them the inside scoop. I don't know, Morgan, like originally, when I was searching for you guys, I had like when I sourced from you guys and I had done my research and you guys sent samples and all that stuff, you're right. It was kind of like a family feel. Like Morgan reached out and was like, "Hey, appreciate your business. Kind of want to talk and see what you guys are doing for blends and what we can do." And I noticed that immediately, and I love that because it doesn't really feel kind of like a inviting atmosphere, if you will. Everybody in the industry kind of feels like shady, and that's what scared me about the CBD industry as a firefighter. Was I was like, I need to find people who are like-minded, but also, in it for the right reasons, kind of thing. So it's pretty cool to have that family aspect. So with that, I think, I just wanted to say thank you guys for doing what you're doing, because I think it's pretty cool. Yeah. And like Morgan, I don't know if you wanted to touch on kind of your end of the brand and like when people come to you, how you help them. And I thought it was very, like, basically the reason we got down the road of the out of service formula was because of, when we talked, you'd mentioned your sleep blends and stuff like that. It was pretty awesome.
Yeah, for sure. So my main focus is well, I mean, it's kind of hard to say. Like Max mentioned, we're kind of a small team, so we all wear a bunch of different hats. But
Yeah, I get it.
definitely one of the focuses being customer service, and that's definitely one of our core values is building that relationship and not just being here to sell you juice and then get out of your way. We want to be there and help you out and everything. And I remember, when you first came to us, checking out your website and checking out your mission and everything. And I just, I loved it. I was really interested in talking with you about what you're doing and helping you, along the way, however we could, with whatever your goals were. And so, yeah, we like to focus on that. That's the great thing I think about, botanically derived terpenes and just our space in general is, we're able to help with scalability and consistency and all that stuff, and having those strengths on our side helps us deliver those to you. And I know it's important for you and it's important for your people to have very, very low THC and a very consistent and quality product and everything. And so it's nice to kind of have that ammunition on our side to come to you and say, well, look, I know you're wanting to do the same thing every time. I know you're looking for the same effects, the same flavor. If you want 10 milliliters or if you want 5 gallons, we've got your back. You mentioned, like the regulatory side of things, the QC side of things and everything. And it's nice having, such a strong QC process and everything. And we, like as Max mentioned, we took a lot of time kind of building that up. So we could get to this point and we get to, talking with you and say, hey, we've got these C of A's. Hey, we've got these, safety data sheets for you. We've got, any specs you could need. And a lot of that comes with just trying to help you feel more comfortable with what you're using. So you don't think that you're just buying snake oil off of a website,
Mhm.
that we've taken the time and the research to, make sure that these things are quality and they're going to be, good for you and what you're wanting to do. And that's the beauty of botanically derived terpenes is that as Max mentioned, there's variations in crops and harvests and everything, and specifically with cannabis and hemp, I'd say too, is with cannabis, there's so much genetics going on. Everybody's trying to develop these new strains every year, and they're crossbreeding, and you hear a lot about like sativa and indica and that stuff, but almost everything's kind of like a hybrid anymore, because they've cross blended everything so much. And that really puts a damper on consistency if you're trying to, there is a process for extracting terpenes from cannabis. There's a process for extracting terpenes from hemp,
which you guys don't do. You guys get all of your terpenes from other plants, which is so great for us because we have that 0.000% THC mark.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's, another level of comfort that we can bring to you and anyone who's trying to hit that mark, is that, we're sourcing these from, orange peels and lavender, and then all these things that, are going to have their variations, but I feel like they're going to be less than if you're trying to, okay, here's train wreck, cannabis strain. We want to get the train wreck terpenes out of that. Well, how do you know the train wreck, grown here is going to match the same grown over here? And also it's an availability thing too, like who wants to, spend all the time growing this crop of cannabis to just throw it into an extraction process when there's all these other, folks want to sell the flower and things like that out of it. And, if you're extracting limonene from orange peels like that, the orange peels are a byproduct anyway, at this point, if they're, making orange juice or whatever, they're not going to throw those away. They can use them to extract the orange oil and the limonene and all those things. So yeah, that's kind of, I love nerding out on the science type of thing. And, that's part of what I feel like I can help bring to the team is kind of the science anatomy side of things. I studied pharmacy in school for a little bit and realized that part of it wasn't for me. I didn't really like where the industry was going and kind of how I ended up there. And I realized I was more interested in like the physiological chemistry side of things and went on to focus on that. And so when I first started with extract consultants, that was one of my favorite things, was just I had never heard of terpenes when I started. I didn't know anything about them. And so getting to learn kind of more like the science part, like I'm like you, if you mentioned like, nerding out on myrcene and kind of how what it does in the body with the receptors and everything, like it's just fascinating to me. And that's what's so cool about our industry being so young, is it seems like there's all this, constant research going on about, how these things, potentially, what they do in the body and how they play with each other. And it's, myrcene does one thing on its own, and the way that these terpenes interact with each other and interact with CBD and THC, it's not really a mystery. They're starting to figure it out, I'd say, but it is kind of ambiguous because it's such a complex thing, like a terpene profile. Like myrcene on its own can help you feel relaxed, but it also, they say it helps increase the blood brain barrier and things moving between those more quickly. And so if you have myrcene paired with say caryophyllene and pinene, that's going to do something different than just myrcene on its own. And I don't know, there's a lot to it. So we all kind of spend time, digging into that and trying to stay ahead of the game with what we're building and doing.
This is where the entourage effect comes in, right?
Definitely.
So, and this is kind of the bummer for us as firefighters, is we're still a pretty decent time away from being able to use THC. I'm a proponent of it. I know I keep it way away from our products, but I believe that it has its indications. It has its risks as well for the fire service, particularly. But I do know that, there are a lot of benefits to it, particularly for pain over certain opioids or any pain medication. And I think that they in addition to that, when we use CBD with a small amount of THC in it, this is a phenomenon that's been published by multiple neurologists. Like it's not a marketing term anymore. They thought it was when it first came out, but CBD does have a better effect with all of the other cannabinoids and terpenes that are prominent in the cannabis plant. And we kind of miss out on some of that, right? Because we don't have THC in there and we can't yet, but we can get some of that back with terpenes. So for us, that was the other added thing was, you guys provide that. And, when it's particularly for us, I mean, the main reason we use it is for sleep. And I was just reading yesterday, this study just came out of Germany that CBD is the most powerful cannabinoid for inflammation. It has more anti-inflammatory property, and they figured out exactly how it works, which is crazy because they just knew it reduced inflammation. They weren't sure how, but they just found out yesterday. Well, the study got the story broke yesterday about the study that they tested multiple cannabinoids, including THC, and CBD was the most potent anti-inflammatory. So, if you have that for inflammation, then you have, terpenes for sleep, you have all of these other effects. That's just a small example of all these other effects that come into play with it. And that's why, having you guys on board and having actual terpenes for flavoring versus synthetics is totally different. You could extract this stuff from cannabis, right? You have a lot of terpenes from it. You said it's a very complex amount of terpenes. Why do you guys choose to use other aromatics or other plants or anything that you get terpenes from?
Yeah, sure. So there's a number of reasons. I guess one is initially, when we first started getting in the game, is risk, and just the cannabis plant itself and the risk operating with it. When we first started, I mean, that was just kind of a core, was to stay ancillary, and that's just kind of been a mission of our company is to kind of be in the picks and shovels side of the game and stay ancillary. The biggest reason, honestly, why we don't use cannabis ingredients in our products, we probably will someday, but again, it goes back to building consistency in products. For example, lavender, right? Like the crop lavender, it's pretty much grown for its essential oil. No one sells the flower of lavender too much unless it's like in a dried wreath or something. And majority of essential oils on the market are grown for their oil. That's not entirely true for everything. Morgan commented on lemon peel and how that's a byproduct. And a lot of essential oils are produced for byproduct purposes, and cannabis is no different. I mean, concentrates from cannabis is a byproduct, and the essential oils from cannabis is a byproduct of a byproduct. The value of the cannabis crop is primarily still in flower, and people growing cannabis sell it for flower. Until there's someone out there who's willing to build a field of hemp or cannabis and strictly use it for essential oil purposes, that being, I can go out and buy a drum or 2 drums of cannabis, not terpenes, cannabis essential oil, because that's really what they mean. It doesn't really have a lot of value for us because I can't go out there and consistently rely on a source to bring back into our warehouse to QC properly, to make sure we're getting the same ingredient over and over again.
Yeah.
I think long term, one day there will be a consolidation of cannabis crops, and just like every other crop out there, they are going to start producing the most efficient one in agriculture. I think someday there will be that for cannabis long term, once the legalization approaches, and when that happens, there'll be a lot more of an opportunity for us to start seeking those types of ingredients and using them in our products. We've played around with building some creative aspects of it. At the end of the day, again, it's all about putting that aroma back into the plant. So ideally, we'd like to use cannabis essential oils. We can do a lot. You can squeeze in a little bit of a cannabis essential oil into a terpene blend, and it's gonna do a lot for the aromatic profile. But again, it really goes back to supply chain consistency, being able to send it over lines. If we have any amount of cannabis oil in our products, I can't ship it over a state line. So there's a lot of factors that come into play as to why we stay ancillary. And in addition, it's just we stick to what we know, we do what we do well, and cannabis is kind of a deviation from that. So those are the primary reasons why we focus on botanicals over cannabis derived. The demand for cannabis derived products is going up a lot. We get a lot of outreach for it. We have partners we refer to, and at the end of the day, again, that the other thing is cost, right? So like cannabis essential oils are very, very expensive. It drives cost up on end products, not down. Our products typically drive costs down, not up. Again, another value add we have to customers is that we do increase their bottom lines a bit. And again, it's not our whole focus, right? Like we've built these products to be as concentrated as possible, so you don't have to use a lot of juice in your products to get flavor, right? So it's not it's not all about money, but there's a piece of it, right? And if we can add, flavor, value add, and monetary value add, it's just a win-win. So in terms of like relationship building, we fully believe that any good relationship is about creating a win-win scenario for everybody. And we can do that with our products. Cannabis essential oils can't really do that yet. Just too inconsistent, too expensive, too much risk. But long term, speaking to potential, like what we look forward to in the future, Cannabis legalization is something we look forward to. We'll have a lot more. Everyone will have a lot more flexibility and room to operate when that happens. And I think it's coming. Not sure when. Still feels like it's a little ways out, but
It does, yeah. I saw today they got just on that exciting news part that the Department of Justice and HHS has got recommendation to schedule it to Schedule 3.
Yeah,
as it should be.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's there's so much research on cannabis and cannabinoids that it would be crazy for any scientist, doctor, researcher to objectively say there is no medicinal benefit to this. I mean, you're lying to yourself. The data is right in your face, and it's been there for decades. But it takes literally an act of Congress to move that, and it I don't know. It was like the juice just wasn't worth the squeeze there. No pun intended here, but the fact was like, it's starting to happen, and they, this administration just said, hey, we should reschedule this, and just now they're like, the suggestion was to move it to Schedule 3, but I don't know how long that takes. But it's more talk than we've had since the inception of the Controlled Substances Act. So I mean, it's moving. But I know for us it would be helpful as well, just because it gets so weird with the THC content when we try to start the source of our stuff. Like, we still have to get hemp plants. Hemp plants still have 0.3% in them up to, and if they go to 0.4, you burn them. It's like it sucks. It's not even intoxicating, and they freak out over it because of the federal law. So it would clear everything up quite a bit. And just banking, man, I feel bad for these guys. Like, how do they have no tax benefit? They have no, like, I won't bore our people with some of the business stuff of it, but that is an interesting part of it to me too. And you look at what is in Schedule 3, right? It's like cough syrup. I think ketamine is in there, which I think it's way more powerful than freaking THC is by like an order of magnitude. I'm a paramedic also. We use ketamine, on patients, and you give ketamine to somebody, and we call it, put them in the K-hole. Like, they go completely unconscious. It has a lot of benefits for psychological therapy too, and they're doing some amazing things with it, but it ain't cough syrup.
And then you look at what's in Schedule 1 too. It's like these super highly addictive heroin. Yeah. Like, totally misclassified as far as, and I feel like the stigma on cannabis is slowly changing, and maybe that's how we got to this whole Schedule 3 conversation in the first place, which is nice, to see people actually taking a look at cannabis, and they don't just look at it as reefer madness anymore.
So that'll take longer to change than the scheduling. It'll get rescheduled, descheduled, I should say, and then for an entire generation or two, you'll still have some of that lingers. Which is fine. I mean, you just treat it like alcohol. Some people don't like to drink. Don't drink.
It's for everybody.
Yeah, exactly. It's not for everybody. So, I love what you guys are doing. I'm excited for the future as well. We are partners for life for sure. Like, we'll always come back to you guys. And we get so much good feedback from the customers too. They just love the blends. And for us, it's so important to have somebody that is so dedicated to quality. And I want our people to see that the people that we choose to work with are like us, and that we don't just stop at the CBD ingredient for our quality. It goes through every single level of our product, and we're like really, really serious about it, just like you guys are. So it's extremely important to us, and it's really appreciated. So thank you guys. How can people find you if they're interested in this stuff? I know a lot of people like some DIY stuff at home or whatever else. How do they find you?
We've got a website, extractconsultants.com. We've got an online store set up for there. We primarily are a B2B business, but we obviously do make things available online for any consumer to hop on there and buy. We've got our terpenes, our flavors. We try to put as much guidance and education on there as we can to help people feel comfortable with what they're getting. But if anybody has any questions, they can always, reach out, give us a call, email support@extractconsultants.com. We've got a great guy, Trevor, that's, helping answer questions and guide people. And any of us, like I said, we're all a team here. We all like to kind of get together and help people out. So yeah.
Very cool. Thank you. I would encourage people to go over to the website and just see the level of care that you guys put into the product, because people that use Rescue One are genuinely interested in all steps. They want to know how it's extracted. They want to know our lab testing processes. They read our lab tests. Our people's careers are on the line for this, so they really do care. And I think it would make them feel good looking at your stuff and seeing how much quality there is. And it's also just interesting, when if you guys look at their products, they break down, some of the blends, like exactly how many terpenes are in which and percentage wise and stuff. It's pretty cool. So that is available for you. And I would encourage you guys to look at it. When we lab test with your products in there, there's also, on the COA, it shows how many terpenes are, percentage wise, which, like I said, and like Max was saying, you don't need a lot, and it puts a lot in there. You don't need, it's very concentrated. So pretty cool. Yeah. If there's any other questions on that, please reach out to me too. I can always, ask these guys or whatever else. If you guys have anything, you can just email me, john@rescue1cbd.com. Thank you guys so much for being here. I'm really happy to have this partnership work so well. And like I said, keep up the great work. We're going to be coming back again and again.
Thanks, John.
We appreciate having us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Love what you're doing too, man. Keep it up. It's awesome to see, your mission and all the people that are, so interested in what you're doing. And I can tell you've got a real heart for helping people out and educating and just, your field in general. It's great, man.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. It means a lot.